So when we talk about fractures and splinting, what are sorts of things that come to mind when we talk about splinting material? Wood, sticks. Sticks. I normally get sticks, normally get wood, things like that. And that's because, I think the Boy Scout movement did a great job and put out there about using sticks for splinting material, and that's not wrong. But as you can see, if we look around this room, this area is actually there's not an abundance of sticks or woods. We're not in the woods, right? So we have to be quite inventive, and we need to think about, what can we use for splinting, and what's the purpose for splinting? And so the purpose for splinting is to immobilise a joint or a limb around the fracture, add additional support, and to provide some comfort. So in an office environment or whatever, we can use books, magazines or whatever, or in a domestic environment, we can use something as mundane as a towel, cushion, pillow. So we've got Marcus here, and let's say Marcus has fractured an arm. Okay, we could actually use this to splint the arm that way, okay, or we can even use it around that way. It adds that additional support to that limb. Okay, so we just place it there and secure that in place. So that's one way that's just to demonstrate that we can use a lot of different things for splinting. We don't necessarily need to go looking for sticks. Okay? So that's the first one. What I will show though, just to demonstrate the point, I'll get Marcus to sit on the floor. Another situation that may occur is if Marcus had actually fractured the long bone in the upper leg, this foot would actually sit flat against the floor. Okay? Again, if we went to actually put it into position, what we're actually doing is realigning this bone up here. So if his foot is sitting out like that, and he's got massive bruising here, we would assume he's fractured this long bone. So we don't go moving it back into position like that. It causes him a lot of pain. And again, we're looking at the possibility of injuring that femoral artery if the bone cuts that. So we don't go putting things back in place. And you don't do this either. Okay, so we're saying this leg here is fractured. The thing that we do is we bring the good leg to the bad. We were talking about sticks before, but really we need something that's relatively straight and about the right size. I have seen people split into brooms and it just looks weird. Broom head sitting down here or it's up under their arm. But we're going to bring the good leg to the bad. It's roughly about the same size as the other one. It's relatively straight, so that's what we're going to do. We're going to splint a leg to a leg. Okay. The thing about splitting legs to legs is that normally they come in pairs, so you're always going to have another one. But you also have these hollows up under the ankles and up under the knees. Okay, and so we can work with that. Again, we bring the good leg to the bad. We get all our material ready, so we're going to use triangular bandages. Again, these things are brilliant. They have multiple uses, as you probably would have seen. I've used this as a pad for a bandage. We've used it as a triangular bandage, and now we're actually going to use it as some splinting resources as well. Okay, so we'll just open these up, spread them out. Now the principle for splinting, and even though this is on a leg, is that you immobilise the joints directly above and below the fracture first, and we immobilise directly above and below the fracture itself. So, I'll just grab two of these here, okay, and we just run them under the ankles like that. So we've got two down here, like that. And we do the same at this end as well. Sorry. Okay, so pull those under like that. Now, while the legs are straight, they're not perfectly straight. They've got all these little knees here and muscle here, and so we also provide a bit of padding just to take some of that out. So an old towel, an old jumper, something like that. Place that down there like that. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to start at the feet. Again, bring the good leg to the bad. Make sure we've got the right bandage. And we do what's called a figure of eight. So with a figure of eight, we cross them over at the front. We bring them around underneath. Okay. And if we can, again, we bring them back around to the front of the feet, or the top of the feet, and we tie these off. I just tie these off in bows, but you can tie them off whichever way you want, as long as it's not going to slip out. The only reason I use bows is I can remove them quickly. Okay, so we've immobilised the joints below the fracture, bearing in mind the fracture is there. Now we immobilise the joint above the fracture. We immobilise below the fracture itself, so again we're saying the fracture's there, so and this is what I was saying, with these you just shimmy them into position and we immobilise above the fracture. So that's for a fracture there. If we thought his femur was fractured, so this long bone up the top here, we would still do this, but we would actually take the next bandage up. We would actually take another bandage higher again, bearing in mind any movement down here is going to impact up here. And that's it. Are there any questions about splinting in general? I mean, I know we've shown it on the legs, but the same principles apply whether it's an arm or whatever. So again, the joints are below, above, and directly above and below the fracture itself.